Okay, campers, in this video we are going to open Visual Studio, write some code to connect over to that dog table that we created in our local SQL Server database, bring that data over and display it on a web page. And it's easier than you think. So we're going to open up Visual Studio here. And this is new to me too. Open local file. I just want to open a project that we've already been working on. I need to change my default to go to where I made my code folder. There's the foo app, and there's the .sln file, so that's what I'm looking for. So I'm going to launch that guy, which will bring up the project that we created in a previous lesson. So the first thing let's do is let's clean up a couple of things. We had like 3 different things showing up. Well, let's go ahead and let's get rid of this HTML file that we don't need that anymore. Let's keep things simple. As Uncle Al says, make everything as simple as possible, but not simpler. All right, we're going to get rid of this Hello World one. And we'll change this line just to say, here are my dogs, because that's what we're going to show. Come back over here, get rid of that text that we put up there. I'm gonna, what are you doing here? I don't know what it just did there. Something because of a first time install. Okay. So we've got our labels. So right now if we run this project, well, before we run it, I'll put an empty grid there. So remember I talked about the toolbox. If you click View Toolbox, you'll have access to components that you'll want to use. So we have a bunch of standard ones listed here. You see this data section down here. Grid view, that's a pretty common, and these are the built-in intrinsic components that come with Visual Studio. I'm going to double click grid view, come back, and it's going to put it right there. Okay, grid view is what you could guess, a grid. So if I run this, I should get my page where we've cleaned it up now, where it just says here are my dogs, and then below would be an empty grid. So let's just make sure this runs. Be nice if it was a little faster. I'm running a virtual Windows machine. Got to cut them a little slack. If it was native, it'd be faster. Okay, here are my dogs, and then nothing below it because there's nothing in the grid. So let's go bring those 3 dog records that we created in a previous lesson from our SQL Server database over. So I don't have SQL SSMS launched. I don't have to have anything launched because that database engine is that MDF file on my computer holds that data, and it's there for the taking. So I don't need to launch anything on the database side of things other than the fact that there's a service running in Windows to keep that spun up. So let's write the code that goes and populates this grid. So I'm going to right click here and go to View Code to go to my code behind, where I could have just clicked on that tab. And here in my page load is where I will do that. All right, so what I'm going to do here is paste in some code, and let's take a look at it real quick. It's not that much code, where I have a connection object, a command object, a data adapter, and a data set. So connection, you can understand what that's about. Connecting to data source, localhost, initial catalog, STC, that's Shih Tzu Coding Database. Integrated security equals SSPI is Microsoft's Windows authentication. I think I can just do true. You would think that you could just put, I think you can put just server and server there for data source and database for initial catalog, but for whatever reason, those are the more predominant ones. And I think you can do true there, but I'm going to keep that as SSPI. And then command, which is what is it I want to do with my database, and you can see that the command type is text, And then this is SQL right here. So I'm actually typing some SQL in some front-end code. Select star from dog. So go get me my dog records. Data set is an in-memory representation of that database table, or what the records I retrieve. Think of the data adapter as the hose that hooks it up, filling that in-memory representation, and then there I'm binding it to the grid. So let's see what happens. This is the extent of this code. Let's run it. Now this is introductory, right? This isn't, in a sense, this is wrong in a sense that you don't write SQL from client code, and we'll talk about objects and ORMs and all these other stuff later, but look what we just did. With a handful of lines of code, with the database we already created, hooked it up, and boom, you're now displaying records from a SQL Server database on an ASP.NET C# web page. Here ended the lesson.